Welcome back to Neural Intel, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into the PyTorch ecosystem, but with a bit of a different angle this time.
Yeah.
We usually talk about models and algorithms on this show,
Right.
but we're going to shift gears a bit and focus on the tools and resources that really power PyTorch. It's kind of like instead of just looking at a spaceship from the bridge, we're going down into the engine room and seeing how everything works.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some pretty cool news that came out of the PyTorch conference that was held in Silicon Valley back in September of last year, September 18th and 19th, to be exact. They launched this thing called the PyTorch landscape.
Yes. And I think what's really fascinating about this launch is just how much the PyTorch ecosystem has grown in recent years, right? It's become this kind of like double-edged sword. On one hand, you have this incredibly rich collection of open source projects that are out there, but then, finding the right tools for what you're trying to do can be a bit of a nightmare. It's like navigating a maze,
Yeah, for sure.
It can get pretty overwhelming pretty fast.
So it sounds like this PyTorch landscape is supposed to kind of help with that problem, right?
Yeah.
But how does it actually work? Is it just like a curated list of libraries that they recommend?
It's more than just a list. I think it's better to think of it as like a dynamic map. It helps you really visualize and explore the entire ecosystem. It's organized into these different categories like modeling, training, and optimization. But it actually goes a lot deeper than just, giving you basic descriptions of each project. You can see how different tools connect with each other and how they all sort of fit together within the broader PyTorch landscape, if you will.
That's cool. So you're saying if I'm like deciding between two different libraries for distributed training, let's say,
Yeah.
this landscape could actually help me compare those two side by side
Yeah.
and see which one would be a better fit for what I'm trying to do.
Exactly. So, it provides really in-depth analysis on every single project that's in the landscape. It highlights, what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are, how compatible it is with other tools, and even how popular it is within the community based on metrics like, GitHub stars and contributor activity and so on.
Wait, so it's not just about listing the most popular libraries.
Yeah.
It actually gives you insights into how well-maintained a project is.
Yeah.
And how widely it's being used.
Yeah. It's super useful.
That is huge, especially for someone like me who spends way too much time trying to figure out if a library is still being developed or if it's dead in the water.
And this is where the stats page on the landscape comes in. So the stats page brings together this data from across the entire landscape, and it gives you this big picture view of trends and patterns, right? So you can see which programming languages are most popular, which types of projects are getting the most industry funding, and even how the ecosystem itself is evolving over time.
Hold on. Did you just say industry funding data? What does that even mean?
Hmm.
Are we talking about venture capital investments in PyTorch startups or something else?
It's a mix of different things. So the landscape keeps track of acquisitions, funding rounds, and even, grants that are awarded to different projects within the PyTorch ecosystem. This information is really useful because it can give you some insight into which areas are getting the most attention and resources, right? Which is helpful, I think, for both researchers and developers who are looking to sort of, align their work with what's happening out there in the industry.
Okay, let's step back for a second and talk about some of the numbers that the article mentions.
Yeah.
Because I think it's pretty impressive. It says that the landscape currently includes over 117 different repositories with over 20,000 contributors. Those are some big numbers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Those numbers really show how vibrant the PyTorch community is, right? How quickly it's growing. But I think what's even more impressive is the diversity of the projects that are represented in the landscape. You've got everything from specialized libraries for natural language processing and computer vision to tools for deploying models on, mobile devices and even web browsers, which is pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about the code itself? The article talks about this massive amount of code that's available, something like 815 megabytes of source code. I mean, that's like a whole library's worth of information.
Yeah.
What are the implications of having that much open code available?
I think it creates this really unique opportunity for learning and collaboration. So developers can actually go in and look at the source code of their favorite libraries, understand how they work under the hood, and they can even contribute their own improvements or bug fixes. And, this kind of transparency and open collaboration is really at the heart of what makes the PyTorch ecosystem so special, I think.
That brings up a good point about contributing to the landscape itself. because the article mentions that it's open source,
Yeah.
so anyone can contribute. But what does that actually involve? Is it just about adding new libraries to the list, or is there more
Yeah.
to it than that?
It's definitely more than just adding libraries. Contributing to the landscape means being an active part of curating and analyzing the PyTorch ecosystem, right? This could mean, writing detailed reviews of existing libraries, finding emerging trends and technologies, or even like developing completely new tools and metrics to enhance the landscape itself. It's really about, becoming a part of the collective intelligence that's powering the PyTorch landscape.
So it's not just a resource for finding tools, it's also a platform for sharing knowledge and kind of shaping the future
Yeah.
of how PyTorch develops, I guess.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting, I think, because, by analyzing the data from the landscape, we can actually start to identify emerging trends and patterns that might not be obvious at first glance.
Hmm.
For example, we can see which areas of PyTorch development are attracting the most attention, both from, the open source community and also from industry.
That sounds incredibly valuable for anyone who's, working in the PyTorch ecosystem, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knowing where things are going, where the puck is headed, so to speak,
Yeah.
can give you a big advantage, right?
Yep.
In terms of, like, your research, your development,
Yeah.
and even, career choices.
Absolutely. And the landscape doesn't just provide raw data, right? It offers insights and analysis based on that data. For instance, one of the things that really jumped out at me when I was looking at it was the huge growth in tools and libraries that are focused on model deployment and optimization. And I think this suggests that the PyTorch community is moving beyond, just model development and research. And they're increasingly focused on bringing PyTorch models into real world applications, making them actually useful out there in the wild.
That makes sense. I mean, we've seen a similar trend across the whole AI landscape, really.
Hmm.
There's this growing emphasis on making AI models more practical and
Hmm.
more deployable in different industries.
Right. And this is where I think the PyTorch landscape can play a really crucial role, by providing the centralized platform for discovering and evaluating all these different deployment tools.
Yeah.
It can really help to accelerate the adoption of PyTorch in industries, everything from healthcare and finance to manufacturing and retail.
So for someone like me who's primarily focused on, developing new models and algorithms,
Right.
you're saying the landscape could actually help me bridge that gap between research and real-world applications.
Exactly. It can help you figure out, okay, what are the tools, what are the best practices I need to know to take my models from, the lab and actually get them working in a production environment.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about the PyTorch conference that's happening in Silicon Valley later this year. Do you think the landscape will be a big focus of the event?
Oh, I have no doubt about it. I mean, the landscape it's a game changer for the PyTorch community, and I'm sure it'll be front and center at the conference. They'll probably have, presentations and workshops dedicated to showing off its features, showing people how to use it effectively, and encouraging people to contribute to it.
Maybe they'll even announce some new features or partnerships,
Mm.
I'm really interested to see how they plan to integrate the landscape with other PyTorch initiatives like the Hub and their, ecosystem of certified partners.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the landscape really has the potential to become this central hub for all things PyTorch, right? Connecting users with the right tools, the right resources, the right people to collaborate with.
It's like a one-stop shop for anyone who's working with PyTorch.
Yeah, I like that. And the beauty of it is that it's always evolving, always improving, thanks to the contributions of the community.
So we've talked a lot about the practical benefits of the landscape, how it can help people do their work more effectively. But I'm also kind of curious about its broader impact on the AI landscape as a whole. What do you think the long-term implications of this kind of, open and collaborative approach to tool development might be?
That's a really interesting question. I think the PyTorch landscape could potentially really accelerate the pace of innovation in AI, right? Because by making it easier for developers to find, share, and build upon each other's work, we can create this much more vibrant and productive ecosystem that benefits everyone.
It's like democratizing access to AI development tools and knowledge in a way.
Exactly. And that could lead to, a more diverse and inclusive AI community, with contributions coming from individuals and organizations of all sizes, all different backgrounds.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting to think about all the possibilities.
Mm.
And it all comes back to that core philosophy of open source, right? Collaboration, transparency, shared progress.
Absolutely. And the PyTorch landscape, I think, embodies that philosophy perfectly. It's not just, a tool. It's really a statement about the power of community and shared knowledge.
So for our listeners who might be hearing about this landscape for the first time today,
Yeah.
what would you say is like the one key takeaway you want them to remember?
I would say if you're working with PyTorch at all, or even if you're just thinking about it, the landscape is an invaluable resource. It can save you so much time, help you make better decisions, and connect you with this amazing community of people who are, all working towards the same goal.
It's like having a roadmap and a compass for navigating the whole PyTorch ecosystem.
Exactly. And the best part is it's always getting better, thanks to the contributions of the community.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. We've explored the PyTorch landscape pretty thoroughly, talked about its potential impact, and even touched on some of its philosophical underpinnings.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
Before we go, I just want to remind everyone that we'll be providing a link to the PyTorch landscape in the show notes, so be sure to check it out and see what you can discover.
And if you find anything interesting or if you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through our website. We always love hearing from you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the PyTorch landscape. We'll see you next time on Neural Intel.